What's up, guys, and welcome back to Athena's Garage. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to change the oil on a Rancher 420. Let's get right into it. Alright guys, so this is going to kind of be a continuation of the rebuild video, but obviously all we're doing in this video is changing the oil. So I need to flush this oil because some coolant got into the case and the oil is actually a little milky after running it. So what I'm going to do is get it warmed up, get it running. I'm actually going to pour a little bit of sea foam into the engine, in the crankcase here, and let it warm up again, and then drain the oil, fill it back up with this 1.5 quarts I got, just to kind of make sure everything is out. Do the same exact thing. I'm going to kind of do a process, and on the next one, change the oil filter, fill it up with the correct amount of oil, and then go from there. So first things first, we are going to take off the seat. Now we're going to take off this side panel piece. This pops off and slips up. So we have access to our dipstick, which is down here. And there's the oil. Like I said, what I'm going to do is get some sea foam, which I already have, pour a little bit in there. I'm not going to pour much, and get this thing warmed up and running. And I'll show you the oil is milky from the coolant getting poured in there whenever I redid the motor, and then we're going to change it. So let me do that. So for this sea foam, I'm not going to pour a ton in here. I'm just going to pour some, just because I don't want to use a bunch of it. I don't know, a couple ounces of it in there. Help clean this motor out. And then we're going to start this thing, get it warmed up, show you the oil, and then drain it. This thing's been running for a minute. Show you the oil. Obviously doesn't look like perfect oil. It's a little bit milky. With that sea foam in there, it should help. But now we're going to, actually I'll just leave that cracked open. Let some air in. We're going to go underneath the quad, open up the drain plug. Okay, so once you get underneath here, what you're going to look for is that drain plug right there. It's a 17 millimeter. So it's got some oil on it from the last time I changed the oil because I wasn't really careful, didn't really care. We're going to go ahead and crack that sucker open and start draining this oil. Let's open this drain plug up and drain this watery oil. I will clean this thing off and let this oil drain out as long as it takes. Okay, we are done dripping. It's been about probably 7 minutes actually. I don't have the patience for much longer. So I'm going to put the drain bolt back in and fill this thing up with 1.5 quarts of oil, just because that's what I have left of this other container. I have a little bit more. I'm gonna run it again, drain it, and then we'll move on to the actual next couple steps. Okay, now we are at the other side of the foiler. You obviously need to take these plastic pieces off, and you're going to be getting at the oil filter right here. So you're gonna need an 8 millimeter bolt, and I grabbed an extension. We're just gonna crack some of these open. You'll be able to remove them by hand. You will get some oil drainage from this, so prepare your catch can underneath. Sometimes these things can stick as well. There we go. This thing definitely needed to be changed. Look at that sucker. So I'm going to set this underneath here and let it drain. I'm going to clean off this cap and make sure there's nothing inside here. Clean all that out. And I'll bring this over to the bench and show you what we're going to do. Okay, so this is the oil filter I went with. I got it from AutoZone. It was like $6. Obviously, here it is. What's nice, though, is it does come with an O-ring for your filter cover. So we're going to take this old O-ring off and put the new one on. In order to do that, you can just get a little pick like this and pick this O-ring out. It doesn't actually look too bad. There is some things on it. So we'll clean this off. I actually got some carb cleaner here. I may use that. Clean off this old oil. Okay, so I didn't realize this O-ring came off and was just sitting on here. Make sure you don't lose this. I'm going to go put it back on the machine, and I'll show you once we're over there where it goes. But I will be putting this new O-ring on and putting a little bit of oil on it. Okay, here's the new O-ring. And it obviously just slips over this like that. Seats in there pretty good. And now we have that. Now, your new oil filter, you see you have this divot and this rubber gasket here. That rubber gasket fits on that little hole right there. So you got to make sure that when you're putting it in, this side faces out and goes on your lid. We're back over here at the machine. Here is that little O-ring right there that I was talking about. And you put your filter in like this. This thing goes over here, and you got to make sure that it's attached to that filter. And there's going to be some pressure. Use your thumb and kind of hold it in there and get one of these one of these bolts started. You can get a couple of them started. And then once they're started, it obviously is not going to come off, so you can let go of it. And then you can just push this in here to get this one. And now you can use your little extension like this, twist these on, and just kind of snug these up. Oil filter is done. Now we can move back to the other side and put the drain plug back in and then fill this thing up with oil. Drain plug is cleaned. You probably should get a new crush washer, but I don't have one, and you can reuse these. It's not advisable, but you can if you don't have one in a pinch. It is down to just a couple drops. So I'm gonna go underneath here and start spinning this drain plug back in. Just give it a good snug and call it good. And we're gonna move on to pouring some oil in. For oil, I use this Rotella T4. It's cheap. I've used it in most of my rigs. It always works. It is wet clutch approved, which is the JSO MA and MA2. You need to look for this when you're working with these Hondas, these Ranchers, because they have wet clutches in them. If you want to use Honda stuff, go for it, but this is what I recommend. Starting out, I'm gonna pour about 2.5 quarts in. It takes like 2.9 or 3, somewhere around there, but I'm gonna do 2.5, run it, let it sit for a second, check it, and then slowly add until we get to the full mark on the dipstick. And we're gonna start it and let it run and idle for a couple, maybe like 30 seconds, a minute. Let the oil cycle through. Shut it off, let it sit for a second, and then check the oil. Now with this dipstick, you do not screw it back in to check the oil. You check it by just letting it set on the top. I've been letting it sit for a few minutes, pull it out, wipe it off, set it in there, pull it out. Not showing anything on the dipstick, so we need to add some more oil. Dipstick. Put it in, pull it out. All right, we're looking a little bit better there. So let's see. We're almost to the top. It's right there. I'm gonna add just a little bit more and call it good. And we are good to go. So now that that's done, we can put this dipstick back in, put these two side plastic pieces on, run it, and I'm gonna run around the yard for a little bit, probably just up and down the road, then come back, check it again, and then that should be it, guys. Another quick tip real fast, clean off anywhere where you have any oil drips, the drain bolt, the filter, and that way after you run it and get the motor hot and you bring it back in, you can park it and check and see if there's any leaks or drips anywhere. So I'm gonna clean them all up, put the plastics on, take it for a drive, and come back and make sure there's no leaks. I've rode it for a little bit. I'm gonna let it cool off down in here in the garage, and I've parked it where there's no oil drips from previously changing it, and I'm gonna make sure there's no dripping or leaking from the drain plug or the oil filter or basically anywhere else on the motor. But this is probably gonna be the end of the video. All right, thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, leave them down below in the comments. Subscribe and like if you want to see more content like this. I have some new stuff coming out with the Tundra, so stay tuned for that. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully this helped you. That's going to be it. Have a good day. Bye.